Thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure. I'm thrilled to introduce Joanie Osburn. And who has a copy of the book? Because it is not right here. Pass the book, please. There we go, there we go. I'd like to have a copy of the book. Thank you. Okay. Joanie is here to talk about her book, Cafe Society. She is an award-winning interior designer, artist, and photographer based in San Francisco. Who else is from San Francisco here?
Good. Hey.
Not bad, not bad. She holds a BA in Humanities from the University of California at Berkeley, a degree in
Go Bears.
Go Bears. A degree in interior design and color from the Rudolph Schaefer School of Design, San Francisco, and studied painting, photography, and sculpture in Paris and Cal Arts Los Angeles. So from art to cafes.
Art, design.
Yeah, okay.
Architecture.
Yeah. Her art is exhibited in galleries and museums across the U.S., and interior design projects featured in magazines, newspapers, and books, including the LA Times, the Wall Street Journal, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Washington Post, House Beautiful, Traditional Home, Sunset Books, and Architectural Digest. Not bad. Good list. Good list. The Parisian Cafe is an integral part of the city's daily life, no matter the weather, the time of day or year, the mood or a neighborhood. In the spirit of the cafe, the dance of the waiters, the camaraderie of the patrons, the perpetual movement and joy that brings Joanie to share a dollop of history, a shot of insight, and a boatload of images that celebrate the Paris Cafe as a cultural heritage worth celebrating and preserving. And I will just tell you this is the only book that Joanie has with her. So you're going to have to go get it on your own. And that is at Shakespeare. Carnavalet, you know the Carnavalet Museum? Le Musée des Arts Décoratifs. There's a little shop on Rue du Petit Thouars that has her book right over here. The Bon Marché, Galliani, Smith, Galerie Lafayette, and L'Écume des Pages, which is right next to the floor.
Right, exactly.
So, since she's not, you have to buy it and then you have to come again.
That's right.
In September.
I'll be back in September.
When you can get it signed.
Yes.
On that note.
Yes. So, and there are bookmarks somewhere around here.
They're floating. Bookmarks are floating on the front counter.
Okay. So
and on that
note,
I'm going to let you introduce Luke and you're on.
We're on. Okay.
She's on. Oh, microphone. You need the microphone.
Well, thank you all for coming today to celebrate the cafes and bistros of Paris. Bienvenue. I'm not going to do a lecture. I'm going to have a conversation with my good friend Luke, who is actually a physician. And we're going to talk because that's what you do in a cafe, right? It's conversation, camaraderie, connection, community. So you're all part of it, and I welcome all your questions and conversation. So to get started, Luke is going to ask.
So I think to start, before we go deeply into the book about Cafe Society, Joanie, what made you fall in love with Paris cafes? When did you first come to Paris and travel 9 time zones to get here?
Yes, it's true. It's a long way from San Francisco. I'm not French. I wasn't born French, but I was born a Francophile. And first slide.
You were born a Francophile?
I was born a Francophile. So I fell in love with the movies. Remember those movies? And still am in love with the French movies, right? And when I was a little girl, that was it. Just wanted to see French movies. When I grew up, I was going to move to Paris and be a fashion designer. Next slide. And the music, right? April in Paris, I love Paris. And here's a lot of songs. This is just from A to AF, songs about Paris. So I just love listening to all of them, and there I am. That's me at university, and I'm thinking, oh, I just can't stop. I gotta do this. And then what I did, finally, I went to Paris. I hadn't been to Paris, and I went to Paris, and with 8 girls in a Volkswagen bus. And it was, do you remember that movie? If it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium. Remember that? That was the trip, okay? So we went to all these countries because it was so far away. And once you're there, you have the whole summer, might as well see all these countries. And then I got to Paris, and that was it. I fell in love with Paris. Next slide.
Sorry.
That's it. That's good.
It's like acting strangely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it, correct?
So, well, yes and no. So I, as you can see, I was there a long time ago, and that's, Léal, and that's a pied de cochon. And in those days, there were the butchers, right? Can you believe I got that photo? I mean, I always have my camera with me, so from the early days, I've been photographing cafes of Paris for decades. And there at Cafe Balto, you know Balto? Any of you? It's in the 6th. And he's playing foosball, okay? And they did that, they played games, it was wonderful. Okay, next slide. And the signs, this was old Paris, and it wasn't like it is now. Paris is, I think it's clean. A lot of the French don't. But, the buildings are all cleaned up. This was not clean. The buildings were dirty. They were dirty, but it was old Paris. It was wonderful. It wasn't like the movies, not at all. But I fell in love with the cafes. And those old signs, I just fell in love with the signs and the lifestyle, the cafe lifestyle. Next slide. So there is my apartment in Paris. And I'm trying to look so French, right? And that is actually my bed. I shared an apartment with a French girl, Bernadette Delorme Lelivre. I wish I could find her now because she was amazing. And we each had our own room, and we shared a kitchen and a bathroom, and it was wonderful. And then I thought I wanted to go back to Paris and paint, and I did. And I studied painting in Paris, and I loved walking around Paris with my portfolio, those beautiful portfolios under my arm, feeling very much like Montparnasse in the 20s. It was wonderful. Next slide. So, so there I am. I'm in the red, not the camel. And you see the old cafes and the Dujevaux. And that's the drugstore. We were talking about that, Saint-Germain, which is no longer there, which I loved. So I absolutely fell in love with that lifestyle. There was nothing like this in California. We did not have the cafe lifestyle, and we still don't. So next slide. So I thought, I got married, I had a child, a house, and I thought, if I can't be in Paris all the time, and I did come every year, I would bring the cafes home. So I found Madame Gatti, the chairs that you sit in, the Gatti chairs, right? I found her, and she had the factory of her father that was from the beginning of the 19th century. And it was at that time in Paris in the 14th. And I bought chairs. And everything in this room is from France. So I just brought Paris home. And then, years later, I had so many people, I should say, my husband and I are in the architecture and design business. And I had a lot of clients who wanted to buy the chairs. So I found Gatti again, but Madame Gatti had sold it to these 2 young men. And so I found them, and I started importing them. And you can see the workshop. It's done by hand, okay? And that's not rattan, that's Rilson, which is a material that is, you can't destroy it. Okay, it's so anyway.
Plastic, right?
It's not plastic.
No.
It's called Rilson. You can see some imitation here that are cheaper that are plastic, but they will not last. And you probably see them on the street as you walk around, some that are falling apart. Those are plastic. Baguettes are Rilson. Okay, next slide. And then I had to have the tabletops with the rims, right? The metal rims, because otherwise the marble would break on the edge, right? So I found that factory. And then I found the bases, and I found the zinc bars. And so I started importing all of that, and I opened a showroom at the San Francisco Design Center, and it was called Cafe Society. Next slide. And there it is. So I started going to the Marché aux Puces, and I got memorabilia and antiques and everything related to the cafe lifestyle. Next slide. The cups, and there I am at the Marché. It was so much fun. Next. So then, what did I have to do? Well, I had to open a cafe. So I opened a cafe. All this with my husband, of course, over there. I opened a cafe in Napa, next to the Opera House. And it was a store. Actually, I opened it as a store because I had been importing all these French antiques and bistro furniture. And I thought, well, we'll have a zinc bar. So I got a beautiful zinc bar from the 30s, and we'll serve coffee while people are shopping, right? But people came in, they said, oh, I'd like a salad, I'd like a glass of wine, and we started serving food. So we had, croque monsieur and salad niçoise and French wines, not Napa wines, French wines. And you could sit in the chairs. You could buy the table, you could buy the chairs, you could buy everything there.
For sale.
Everything was for sale. It was really fun. And in addition, that wasn't enough. Next slide. So it was very popular. Next slide. So then I had cabaret, French cabaret, and I had wine tasting and cheese tasting and French conversation. Next slide. And poetry readings and magic shows. And we still had the showroom in the Design Center in San Francisco, so working all the time. Next slide. So.
And what years was that?
What year was that? It was from 2000, ready for your next one, from 2000 to, for about 5 years, yeah. And then it was just, we had 15 employees. We were just working all the time, going back and forth, San Francisco and Napa.
Well, that's fascinating background. There's other books about the bars and cafes of Paris, and what made you make your book different? What makes it different and the perspective you use on it?
Okay, so next slide, I will tell you. I read every single book, French and American, about the cafes of Paris. And they were either all words, history of Paris cafes with an illustration every few pages, or they were all photos with no text. And I had tens of thousands of photos of Paris cafes that I'd been taking for decades. And I've been wanting to put it into a book for many years, and I started it 20 years before I actually did it, but I couldn't do it. I had too much work. And so finally, when we stopped all that work, I had time to work on it. And I wanted it to have my photos because each photo tells a story. But I needed words to tell the story of the importance of the French cafe lifestyle in history and in everyday contemporary life. So, so that's why I put it together the way I did.
Well, I think I can guess why you gave it the title that you did. Where did you find the cover design?
Yes, well, that was I had a wonderful book designer, I have to say, who Louise Brody, who's one of the top book designers, and she is British, lived in America, and has a French husband, lived in France for 27 years. And so she made it very beautiful, and I had trouble figuring out where to put the text, but she didn't change anything else. So next photo. So I have a cup collection. See that? And wherever I go in the world, I collect espresso cups. And I thought that would make a good cover because it's from the cafes of Paris. And if you see this, actually, inside, I have that. More. And then, yeah. And then I have, these are the cafes that I actually had in my cafe. I'll send this around after so that you can all look at through the book since I didn't have any. So anyway, so that's how I wanted it. And at first, Louise didn't like that idea, and she had something more like this on the front. And then she came around to that idea, and then we put this on the back.
Because Joanie, you said it's my book.
Well, kind of, yes. Okay. All right. So, and of course, Cafe Society was a natural because my business was called Cafe Society. And it's time suspended. When you go to a cafe, you suspend time. You're just there in the moment. Even if you're alone or if you're with other people, if you meet friends. But you're not working, you're not, it is essentially the third place, right? I hate to quote, what's his name, Starbucks, but Schultz, yeah. But it is the third place, away from work and home and school, where you can just be and be in the moment. And it's also about the people. Cafe Society is about the waiters and the waitresses and the barman, the barwomen, and the chef, and the people and the dogs, right? The animals and the children. Everyone is welcome. Okay, next slide.
And your photos really emphasize the life in the cafe. Did you do all your photos, or did you get any pushback or trouble taking the photos of people in the cafes?
That is a really good question, because I've been photographing all over the world, and I've had people come up to me and like want to destroy my camera, and but I didn't. I really didn't have a problem. All the photos in the book are mine, and all the text is mine. I'm going to give Steve credit again because when we were here, we came back. I was just about working on the book, and then COVID hit, so I worked on it at home. But so much happened, I couldn't come, I couldn't come. So much happened that changed because of COVID. There were cafes that closed and new ones that opened. And so when we finally came back, we stayed in 5 different hotels all around Paris, and I photographed in each arrondissement. And then we were so careful. Steve got COVID. And I didn't have it, and at that time you had to test at the pharmacy. and get a certificate that you don't have COVID in order to fly. And so I got my certificate and left early, and Steve had to stay for 10 more days. And I said,
Terrible.
it was awful. It was awful. And he was so mad, you know, that he said, well, I'm just going out in Paris, you know. So I said, okay, go to this cafe and this cafe and this cafe. These are the ones I missed. So I have 5 of Steve's photos in the book, and I want to give him credit. He also did the graphics for the timelines in the back of the book. And he's an architect, so he knows how to do that. So anyway, all these photos are mine, and I love the quiet moments, you know. And next slide.
Joanie, that on the right is Café Charlot.
That's
and
right.
That's my table back there.
Is it?
Okay.
But that's not you.
Straight through, past that nice tushy that's there.
Yeah?
That's my table.
Okay, well, maybe that is you right there.
No, I'm a little further over.
Oh, okay. Okay, yes. Okay, so yes, it's just capturing the moment. That. So it's all about capturing the moment. That's what each of the photographs is, and it's just like the moment before it's not there, and the moment after it's not there, but just getting at that moment. And L'Étoile Manquante is gone, you know that, but I left it in the book because I love that photo. Because does that capture the Paris Cafe? Yeah. And then there you go on the right also, the sweet moment. Next. Yes. And you see this waitress? She is out of Toulouse-Lautrec, right? I mean, look at her. She's wonderful. And the one on the right, well, this is, I took a long time ago, as you can tell, because she's inside a cafe smoking a cigar. Can you see that, the cigar? Oh, yes, that was, and that, yeah. That's that Brasserie Lip. Brasserie Lip. This man is obvious. I took this 20 years ago. He's obviously a regular, and his cat has her Evian in her bowl. And she's sitting in her gâté chair. Because everyone is welcome. Okay, next. And there we are again at your cafe, Charlot.
Yeah, I'm not there either.
I missed you. I missed you. And then this is La Coupole, just a beautiful, quiet moment.
Our friend Leonard Pitt went to Paris with his grandson. He was about 10 or 11 years old, and when he came back, we asked him, you know, what did you like most about Paris? And he said, I like the cafes the best. And you quote Anais Nin saying, the hours I have spent in cafes are the only ones I consider living apart from writing. Do you think young writers are still writing in cafes, and did you write in the cafes?
Well, here's an older writer writing in cafes. You still can see people writing in cafes because you know what? Everything happens in the cafe, even now, right? From rendezvous to revolutions. So people are writing in cafes, they're playing chess, I have, you know, they're meeting their friends. My book designer was a little bit concerned about some of my photos because she thought maybe somebody's going to get caught, you know, in an affair. But I don't know. Yeah, I haven't heard anything so far. But
you haven't been sued yet, let's put it that way.
Exactly. And so I did not write in the cafe because I'm busy photographing, and I just so wanting to be there in the moment and just being in the cafe and watching the people and experiencing it. And when I write, I need total focus. So, next.
And so you also say that democracy rules in the bistro, and that everyone is welcome regardless of ethnicity, race, political opinion, wealth,
Right.
anything else.
Right.
And yet Americans sometimes say that the waiters and other people are rude, they're exclusive, they don't feel welcome. What's up with that?
Right. Well, so how many of you have had a rude waiter?
Oh, everybody must have at least once.
Right? Right? But how many of you have had a lovely waiter, a waitress who's been charming and
All the time. All the
yeah,
time.
right?
Always.
Right?
Without fail.
That's it. That's it. So, and there you go, you know, Domingo Flor, just absolutely charming in the repartee and so I think also it depends on you and if you try to speak French or if you smile. I know that I was interviewed by a writer for a bistro newsletter here, or newspaper in, I forget what it's called, in Paris. And I said, well, what do the French cafe owners and bistro owners, what do they think of Americans? Because we know, don't we, that Americans are loud, right?
Oh, yes.
Americans, right? Americans are loud. And he said, I didn't say that. I said, well, what do they think? He said they really like Americans, but they think they're too loud. So, yes. So anyway, but they can be charming. Next slide. See the smile? And I think they're getting nicer now. There's like a campaign to make Paris, people more friendly in Paris. Next. Okay. Right? So, does anybody know this guy here on the left? Does anybody remember him? Yes. He was very surly. Okay, very, very surly. And I asked my Gatti friends why, and they said, because you know what, he was surly, but not really. He'd say, "Oh, we have no seats. Oh, come with me." You know, he was like that. And but it was like a whole act, and it turns out he's the owner. He's the owner of La Palette. And so that was just a game he played. And on the right, okay. So this again is Brasserie Lip, and Brasserie Lip. Have you been to Brasserie Lip? Okay. So you know it's got all these signs. No photos, no checks, no this, no that, right? All these signs all over. No ordinator, no. Yeah, no phone, no nothing. And I have to get this for the book. I have to get it in the book because it's so beautiful and so special. So I'm like this with my camera, right? Like this. And he looking right at me. But they didn't say a thing. Didn't say a thing. Next. And then the chef. Okay, the chef comes out and talks to you. That's Alain Fontaine, who gave me my book launch here last year and wrote the introduction to the book. And he's has Le Mistouré, which is a wonderful bistro, and he's working to make the French bistros and cafes a UNESCO intangible heritage. And he just asked me to write a letter. My book is in support of it. He's using my book in support of the campaign. So I'm very honored by that. But he is wonderful. And
Oh, sorry. I went on instead of Pinocchio.
what?
Never mind.
She missed the cue.
Oh, next. It's good. It's good. Right. And the French have a sense of humor, right? Now, the bears worked out really well during COVID, but you still see them. It was started before COVID in the 13th, but you still see them. And it's so, you have to smile, right? You have to smile. You see them up there? Yeah. Okay, next. All right.
So coffee shops have become popular all over the world, and yet they're changed, and the Starbucks are all alike. They're all products of algorithms. So what's the difference between a Paris cafe and a coffee shop in America and elsewhere?
Okay, so we know all about, right, we know that Paris does not have great coffee in the cafes, right? Right, we know that? And
Well, it ain't Italy.
It ain't Italy. That's it. It ain't Italy. You can get good coffee here, but you have to go to a specialty coffee shop, right? And, you know, as you see, it's in the book, coffee shop is not a cafe, because everyone is on their computers. This is in the US, this is in San Francisco, but everywhere you go all over the world, you will see the same thing, the same white walls, the same uncomfortable chairs, and the same computers in front of people's faces. And that's not what cafe society is about.
And a styrofoam cup.
Yes, because everything is to go, not to stay. So that's the US. And guess what? They have them in Paris too, right? You can get good coffee here in a specialty cafe. But you know, Steve and I are coffee snobs. We have a really fancy machine at home, but we only drink decaf. Do you know how hard it is to get decaf in a specialty cafe? It's like snobby. Oof. Ooh. In the US, you can get decaf, but here? Okay, next slide. So, yeah, they're disappearing.
So you've seen the cafes of Paris over decades, probably half a century or more. And yet, as you've shown, that some of them are disappearing and stuff. So what do you think is the future of the cafes in this coming century? Are they going to survive?
Right. That's a concern, a big concern, because so many have gone. So many beautiful cafes have gone. And there are new ones that are coming, and there are some that are going to stay forever, but it's a real concern. That's why Alain is working so hard to make them a UNESCO heritage, and he does so many other things with the Minister of Culture. I signed a book for the Minister of Culture and for Macron and for Anne Hidalgo, your favorite, and for Joe Biden. And Paris would not be Paris without its cafes. Can you imagine Paris without its cafes? It wouldn't be Paris. So they have to survive. Next slide. So here's old Paris, which still lives, and what we love, right? Don't we love old Paris, right? And we have to keep it. But I'm hopeful. But, you know, at the end of the 19th century, there were, I think, 40,000 cafes in Paris, and now I think we have around 4,000. I'm not sure of the current number, but so you can see what's happening. Okay, next slide. So here's something that really bothers me, where you have a beautiful old cafe. This is L'Odeon, okay? And you see on the left, that's how it looked when I first got here. And you see they remodeled it. Look at the staircase. They whited it out, and they put in a plastic counter. And then, a couple of years later, they thought, oh, no, that's not going to work. So they did this. They warmed it up, right? They put baskets and wood counter. And the white, and it's all gone. The outside still looks good and original, but the inside is destroyed. So that's a problem. Okay, next. Okay, so here again, I have my homage to Proust. And I have photos of a while ago and now. And you can see the old, and then these are still survived and going strong. And I have a whole section with many, many cafes and bistros. Okay, next slide.
So I understand that Macron and Hidalgo thanked you with some form letters, but Hidalgo did something more.
Oh, yes. Well, also, Café Coste. Do you remember Café Coste, any of you? Café Coste, the Coste brothers came into Paris in the 80s, and they came from the Auvergne, which is where the people from the bistros and cafes come. I think they own like 70 or 75% of the cafes and bistros of Paris now, still. Anyway, they came from the Auvergne, and they designed this cafe, which became iconic. It's gone now. It didn't last long. But now they have lots of cafes, they have hotels, and they get the best contemporary designers, because what's new is also good if it's well designed and food is good. So this is Cafe Marley, which is one of their cafes as well, which is still exists. Okay, next slide. Oh, and there, this is, again, these are new or renewed. And now the name is going out of my head, but it's in my notes. Anyway, this, do you remember what this is called?
La Parousse.
This is La Perouse, but this one,
Charbonnet.
yes, Chardonnay.
I'm reading over the shoulder.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's right, it's right
It's
here.
right here.
I know,
Well done.
I know.
Very good, Bob.
Good cover.
I know. Thank you. Well, I did write it, but see, I don't have control. Adrian has control. So anyway, the Chardonnay, I have a photo of it before with this amazing bar. And it's absolutely gorgeous, but I think they overdid. I mean, I love color, but I think they made it too bright, and they need to tone it down because it's lost its old world flavor, in my opinion, in my design opinion. Okay, next slide. Okay, so Paris surprised me. You know, people said to me, well, what do they think about your book in Paris because you're American? And the reception has been amazing. Alain wrote the foreword to my book, a very generous foreword. And that's my book, that's Alain. And this is Le Misteret. This is my book launch, which Adrian came to. And that's Louise, my book designer. And I said I signed a book for the mayor of Paris. Well, she wrote me a very generous letter. And I'm just so honored by that, even though you don't like her. I know the French don't like her. They vote for her, but they don't like her.
What can I say? She's the mayor. It's still an honor.
It's not an easy job. It's not an easy job.
No, this is true.
And the bicycles are good as long as you look both ways, right?
I don't have a lot of good to say. But
I know you don't. Okay.
So we've heard.
Okay. All right. So then,
So this is the inevitable question. Anyone who writes about food in Paris, so what's your favorite?
yeah. So I have many favorites. Many, but I love Montparnasse. Because Montparnasse in the 20s, from about 1920 to 1929, was the place where all the writers and the artists and the poets and the filmmakers from all over the world came. And they created so many art movements and all the things that we love. And the cafes are still there. So I love Le Select and La Rotonde and La Coupole and Le Dôme and Closerie de Lila. So I just love that area, and that those are still there and still wonderful, and you can still feel back in that time. So now I would love to open it to questions. Yes. Thank you.
Did you not feel that you had to get releases from the people?
That's a good question.
He's a lawyer.
Are you a lawyer?
I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Close.
So here is the law. My book.
repeat the question.
Oh yes, he asked if I didn't feel that I had to get releases from all the people. So when you see my book, I have a lot of people in my book, because for me, Cafe Society is about the people, and all the books, the cafe books in Paris, have just the interiors or the exteriors that are empty, maybe the back of a waiter, maybe a waiter's face, but that's it. And that's not what my book's about. It's not an architecture book. So that's the law in France, that you have to get releases. So I had my book published in the US, and the law in the US is that if you are in a public place, you can be photographed and published. Okay? Yes. Yes, my book designer was worried about it too because she lived in Paris. And she does all these books, these French books. So anyway, so to be continued. It's not going to be over. We're going to continue. Yes?
I have a question. I struggle with understanding the difference between a cafe and a bistro and a restaurant and a brasserie, and it seems like they may be getting all blurred. What is your perspective on that?
Okay. Question was the difference between a cafe and a bistro and a restaurant and a brasserie, and are they getting blurred? And I would have to say yes. They're getting blurred, but also yes, there's a difference because you can see on the canopies now on the it says cafe, bistro, brasserie sometimes, or bar, bistro, restaurant. They get mixed up, and I'll start with a brasserie. Does anybody know what a brasserie is? Yeah, it was. It was a beer brew. It's the word for brewery. Brewery. So after 1870, when the French lost the Franco-Prussian War, a lot of people came to Paris. A lot of French came to Paris, and some started brasseries, which is making beers. A beer factory. And then they started serving the beers, and then they started serving the food from Alsace. The choucroute garni, choucroute de la mer, the big platters, and the brasseries, from the Art Nouveau. A lot of times they're Art Nouveau and Art Deco, and they have the high ceilings and beautiful mirrors, and they're absolutely gorgeous. A bistro, and they're open all the time. A bistro is usually small. It's usually family run. And recipes from grand-mère a lot of times with updates, some of them, and some of them are very classic, but they're normally only open 5 days a week. Some are open all week, like 24/7, not 24/7, but serve all day, and it's usually breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now Le Mistrouet, which is a bistro, is open 7 days and serves all day, so there's everything changing. And then a cafe is a cafe. You don't have to have a reservation. You can come. You can sit outside. You can sit inside. You can go to the bar and drink a coffee for less or whatever for less money, or you can sit there all day with just one coffee. But there's a full kitchen, unlike coffee shops, which mainly specialty coffee shops have coffee. Maybe some sweets, maybe some refrigerated sandwiches, But a cafe has a full kitchen and serves hot food all day long. But you don't have to order the food. You can just have a glass of wine or aperitif or a coffee. And restaurants are white tablecloths, more formal. Did I hit them all?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Joanie, they're mostly distinguished by their when they serve, the hours they serve.
Yes.
It's a very big deal between them. Actually.
Oh, yes, there is. Okay, any other questions? Yes?
What kind of training did the waiters get, and when did it start opening up to women?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear because there was a noise outside.
I know in France, waiters are professionals, they're not like college kids.
Right.
Like in the United States, I was wondering what kind of training they get, or what do they have to go to school, how long, and I noticed also that there are a lot more women who are waiters
now there
than
are.
there used to be, so.
Right, now there are more women.
Revolution or
Yeah,
feminist revolution?
Well, I think Paris is more open now than it used to be. It's less formalized, and yes, it is a métier. It's a profession for them. You can see them polishing the glasses, and they really care, and they do a good job, and they are trained. However, I don't think they're trained very well in making espresso. Sadly. So, any other questions? Yes?
Another one.
Yeah?
Could you address the eternal question of tipping?
Tipping.
Tipping. Well, you know, you don't have to tip, but you can leave a little bit and more if you have a good service. But you don't have to. It is included. Just like taxes included when you buy something.
Have you noticed the new trend? Where they come with their little machine for to get their card, and it now asks for a tip. Have you seen that?
Oh.
That's Square.
I haven't seen that. Oh, but I do like that you can pay with your watch. Yes, because I'm from the land of Apple. Yes.
First of all, I wanted to thank you because I'm French, and it's so nice to see that a foreigner writes about our cafe. I'm really proud. I also wrote a book about Paris Cafe, by the way. My question is, don't you think that the social network have changed the Paris Cafe?
That what? The social networking?
Networks. I give you an example. For example, I used to go to Café de Flore et Café Les Deux Magots, which is very popular. Yeah. And since after the COVID, now you have to queue. So me, I won't go. I don't go. I refuse to queue to have a coffee. And I think, well, my opinion, but I wanted to have your opinion, and I think this is a disaster.
I agree. I agree. And they're I think I think Deux Magots or Flore, one of them is franchising, or they're having cafes. Yeah, I think it's a big shame. I won't stand in line either, but once in a while, if it's very quiet, I will go inside, because I prefer to be inside anyway, and you don't have to queue to go inside. So, but I do think it's a big shame, and social media has changed everything in all of our lives. And one sad thing in America, this light, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back here. The sad thing in America is, especially post-COVID, people are working at home, and we don't have French cafes, French-style cafes. We have, with the computers. And there's an epidemic of loneliness in America right now, because people aren't getting out and being with other people. They're working at home. And
It's Paris.
and I don't think it's a problem here in France, because you have the life on the street, you have the energy of the cafes. I don't see the loneliness epidemic here because of that. And actually, I have a new project that I'm going to work on, which is to try to bring French-style cafes to San Francisco, all over San Francisco. So I'm going to try to do that. Yes. I'm going to talk to the mayor, whoever the new mayor may be, because we have an election. And I'm going to talk to, I'm putting together a list of people who have a lot of money. Because there are a lot of them in San Francisco who can afford, just one of them can afford to put cafes all over Paris. So anyway, it may work, it may not, but I'm going to give it a try.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big project, Joanie.
It is. It's my next project, because there are no other cafes in the world that I want to write about. It's just Paris. Paris is the cafe of the world. Yeah. Yes.
Do you have any suggestion as to how someone, as an infrequent visitor, might interact with someone at a cafe to engage a conversation? And my French is almost non-existent, so that speaks for itself.
That's okay.
But still, I struggle with trying to engage and not be rude.
That's a good question. Did everybody hear that, or I'll repeat it? You heard it?
I heard it.
Okay. So I think it's really easy and interesting, depending, of course, where you sit. But you see everything. Here, of course, it's unusual, but the tables are so close together. It's not like in the U.S. where you're so spread out. They're so close together that you're just like, excuse me, oh, hi, And you meet people from all over the world, and it's okay that your French isn't so good, because there are most people speak English, And certainly the French in Paris all speak English, and people from other countries, that's the language that they'll be spoken to here. And I suggest Duolingo.
Wait,
Are you doing that?
yes.
Yeah, me too.
You could spill your coffee too.
And how do you know about that? You've been speaking to my wife?
That's good. Yeah, I think you know, I think that will happen normally. That, you know, if the people look fun and lively, that you can say, oh, where are you from? You know, and they're not always speaking. There are a lot of tourists here too, from everywhere, right? They're not all French. Any other
Yeah,
questions?
many of those cafes, they're not French, actually.
That's right.
Yeah, and a lot of the well-known cafes, they are tourists, let's face it.
That's it. But there's some really good ones that are not so American that you can find, and they're in the book. Okay. We had lunch yesterday. I'll recommend one right now, but don't ruin it. Called Les Temps de Cerise. Do you know that one? It's a bistro. So good. It's so good, and it's so
On
real.
the corner of Petite Musc and, I can't remember.
Yes.
It's an association, the Temps des Cerises. You have one is private and one it belongs to the people.
Yeah, but the one on Petite Musc, the one on the corner of Petite Musc is just a
No, but the real one, the name comes from La Commune during the.
Yeah, it's a song. It's a song. It's a song. It's a wonderful
It's
song.
a association of people. It's not. They don't do profit. So because in the first one.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah, okay, the one you're talking about is the one in the Butokai. The big one in the
That's the
Butokai.
first one.
Okay, but there's a little one that she's talking about on the corner of Petite
Right.
Musc in
Yeah,
the
but
fourth.
they did copy.
They copied it.
Well, maybe a copy, but it's a good one, and the food is really good. And it's in the book. I have a lovely photo of friends of ours who are kissing outside. It's adorable. Yes.
You mentioned French film. Films filmed in Paris earlier in the presentation. So I was wondering if you have a favorite film scene that is filmed in the Paris cafe.
Oh, but they all are filmed in Paris cafes, aren't they? Oh, well, what about Amelie? Right, Amelie. Yeah, you know, every.
Not Amelie, but Amelie, right? I'm just gonna. Amelie.
Amelie. What about Amelie Poulain? Okay, so but here's the thing about that movie is I've watched it many, many times. Every time I watch it, I see something else. And the last time I watched it, I saw that, oh, it's a film about color. Okay? So it's just a wonderful film. Another favorite film of mine, you didn't ask, but it's not really in Paris, but it's Un homme et une femme. Do you remember that movie?
What's the name of that?
Un homme et une femme.
Oh, a man and a woman.
That movie is magical, and the music. Anyway, any other questions?
I'm fascinated with the number of photos you have, and obviously this
Yes.
has been a passion for years. At what
Yes.
point did this become congeal as a book? When did you have the idea of all this,
Yes.
this observation you've been doing for so many years?
Yes.
How to make it into a whole.
Well, I think that it was inside me, you know, because I just love this lifestyle and have all these photos, and it just seemed like such a natural. It was not. Did everybody hear the question? Okay.
Yeah, but you need to repeat it for the recording.
The question.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question was, you have so many photos in the book, and I'll paraphrase. And when did you decide to put it together and make a book? What made you want to do that? And the answer is that it was just something percolating inside me while I was working all the time, 7 days a week. And then when I had the time to do it, and I had this idea 20 years before, then I had to pick from tens of thousands of photos. And then I took more photos, because every year. every time I come, I'm taking, I have taken 1 million photos this trip. And so I had to go through and pick which photos. So I got it down to, 5,000? And then I got it down to 1,000, then 500. I mean, I kept honing it. And, you know, I really wanted that picture, but I couldn't do it. So I do a little social media so I can still do some photos. And then I honed it down, and then I organized it all by the importance of the different parts of Cafe Society that are important. And if you'd like, I can pass the book around since I don't have any to sell, and you can look through.
Why on earth not?
Well, I will tell you, there was a glitch.
Can you fix the glitch?
Yes, well, we can. I'll be here in September. I'll be at Le Mistrouet, and maybe Adrian can send that out in a.
Was it a French delivery glitch?
It was actually, yeah, it was the book distributor in London, in Britain. It was that. Didn't get to Paris from London in time. So, but they are in bookstores, and
You can order them on Amazon.
and you can order them on Amazon. And if you come in September to Le Mistrouet, I will sign them for you. Even if you bring your book, it'll be okay. I'll sign them. You don't have to buy it there. Okay? Okay. All right, anything else? Yeah, I'll pass them around. Did you want to look? Yeah.
Joanie, thank you, dear.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
Wonderful.
Don't forget to return your mic.
Oh, my mic.
Hold on.